Hey guys, just a reminder, if you want to hear all of these wonderful B Plus podcast episodes completely ad-free, make sure you head over to Patreon or Podbean, where we are the featured podcast this week. You can subscribe for as little as $1 a month up to $10 a month, where anything you want to help us with, it really helps out. It's going to help us grow the site. It's going to help us redesign some things, and everything that we get through this and through the advertising as well is all going straight back into the podcast so that we can get Aussie Grapps out there for the rest of the world to hear about, for the rest of the world to see, so we can grow this mission of watch global, support local, and build indie wrestling. So if you want to be a part of that and get some really cool rewards like call-in shows, bonus episodes, ad-free like I mentioned, then head over to patreon.com/theb+ and subscribe today.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening.
Hold one. Arm drag.
You're not good at this. Get out. Let me tell you a personal story about Vince McMahon.
You just made the list.
Oh my God.
Sorry, no speak English.
Dummy. Goodbye and good night. Hold two. Arm bar.
It's still real to me, damn it.
Dummy. Yeah.
This is the worst town I've ever been in.
Hold three. The moss covered. Three-handle family Gradunzo.
Mamma mia.
And now,
Unchained.media presents the B Plus Podcast with your host, Greg Unchained.
it's me, Austin. It was me all along, Austin. Number 4, armbar. I will never retire. I still got 200 more. I got 200 more holes to list.
Alright, ladies, gents, and non-binary friends, welcome to the B Plus Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Unchained. Today is Friday. You know what that means. It's Aussie Grapps Day, and as you can probably tell, I'm losing my voice. My child brought home pharyngitis, I think they called it. I don't know. Some sort of virus from kindy, and so I've had a hell of a week, and I am losing my voice. So I'm not gonna do the news this week. I'm terribly sorry, but I just can't. I will break down sort of what shows are coming up after the interview, but thankfully the interview this week went a little longer than I expected. It happened before I got terribly ill, and thankfully TNT, he has a lot of stories to tell. So this week's guest, none other than the Master of Detonation. It's a longer interview than normal, but it kind of worked out in the end because now I don't have to read the news and I can't read the news. So I'll hit you after the interview with what's happening this weekend near you. All right, 3, 2, 1, it's detonation time. And I am joined by the Master of Detonation, the leader of the Detonation crew, the owner of AWF, one of the faces most intrinsically recognized with Australian professional wrestling, especially if you're a New South Welshman like myself. TNT, Greg Bounds, how are you, man?
I'm fantastic. What an introduction. Thank you, Greg.
Yeah, thanks. I pride myself on my introductions. I try to list off as many of people's accolades as I can. So
Well, you do all right, man. Thank you very much.
I didn't mention any of your former championship reigns, your internationally traveled, etc., etc. You've been doing this a long time. I could go for a while.
I have been doing it a long time. It's been, I guess it's about 24 years. So it's, obviously major passion, a lot of sort of miles and sweat and, just a lot of hard work, determination, dedication, desire, and detonation, So, yeah, I love pro wrestling. I'm very, very lucky to just do pro wrestling. I'm probably one of the only people in Australia, currently and for the last God knows how many years to be able to just do pro wrestling as my job. I've kind of worked out enough ways to just streamline my business practices to be able to, get just enough money to do that and do things comfortably. So yeah, very, very lucky, man. Very passionate for the pro wrestling.
Right. And so how did you get into wrestling? I mean, obviously lifelong fan and stuff, but when did you have that, that recognition of I could do this?
Well, I was still in high school, sort of thing. Like I was, I think I first saw wrestling when I was about 7 years old. The first WrestleMania stuff popped on my TV, and I was, captivated as a little TNT. And then, basically from there, just watched wrestling. Consumed whatever I could as a teenager. I kind of even did like a newsletter. And then from there, kind of went to a local show when I was about sort of 16. And then I'd seen it once or twice advertised. Like I used to go to football games with my father, and they would have it at West League. So I would hear it, and I was kind of aware, can we go? And then, I started attending shows at Ingleburn RSL. They were promoted by Worldwide Wrestling, and then through some good people, got the hookups. Wayne Pickford and Ken Dunlop were running the promotion at the time, sort of famed as the new Australian Kangaroos. Some good gentlemen that gave a lot of people opportunities when they were first starting out, and through some friends, basically got involved and went from there, man. Trained there, wrestled there. Shane, the Ace Fenton, who was their champion at the time, trained me in the basics, and then started wrestling on shows here. And then, went overseas, did much more training, went to Mexico, trained in America, came back here, wrestled some more. And then, many seminars, many training things in Australia, in Japan, in USA again, wherever else they'll have wrestling, and I was there. And just kind of, was on shows, didn't think that all the shows were all that great, thought I could almost do a better job sometimes. So as a young sort of dude that just was very passionate about wrestling, said, you know what, I think I can run a show or two, and I went and got some sponsors, and I was kind of helping out with the booking and wrestling on shows for the IWA at the time. And it kind of just, I got hurt, and then one of the guys tried to push me out, Tyron Townsend. I don't think he was didn't think I was, I don't know, because I was hurt and there were some issues. So I was just like, oh, you know what, I'll maybe if I'm not wanted, I'll do my own thing, which was fine. And then, I ended up landing on my feet and doing all right, man. And here we are 20 years later. That was in 1999. And, 2019 now, AWF's 20th year is coming up, promoting wrestling around Australasia. So, big in the wrestling days. It's been a long stretch, but it's been a very enjoyable stretch, and I think still the best to come. So, yep.
Yeah, so long path, long journey before you get to the idea of booking and sort of and running your own stuff. Now, I mean, you kind of came up in, I guess I sort of look at it as almost like a lost era. Not lost necessarily, but there's not a lot of documentation about stuff that happened in that era. I mean, you mentioned some promotions there that I didn't know. You mentioned some names that I did know, Punisher Pickford and what have you. But yeah, you came up in sort of a more of a lost era. Whereas now there's so much stuff.
Yeah, well, I don't know whether it was lost at the time. I think it's lost now via the people that follow wrestling on the internet, or just the history, like recording methods weren't as strong back then. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm with you, but it's a bit of a fill-in. Like, everybody thinks that, like, wrestling's at this giant peak in Australia right now. To be honest with you, back then, like, the shows grew as good, if not much better, in certain places. And overall, like, the actual, like, perhaps the wrestling quality, like, as far as the skills of the performers, like, maybe on some levels wasn't as good, but on other levels it was like a bit tougher. Maybe there was a lot more like men involved that actually people bought into and probably thought were like tough wrestlers. So it was different, the times were different. But as far as like crowds, like, man, I would wrestle in front of 400 and 500 people every weekend. It was quite prevalent live and locally. Before WWE started coming to Australia again regularly, and saturating our TV markets with wrestling every 5 seconds, local wrestling did really well because it was still an attraction. People wanted to see it live. Yeah, maybe like to an extent there wasn't as much like home stuff to do now. There's, PlayStation wrestling on the tip of your finger with internet streaming and all the rest of it, and downloads and all the rest of it. So, it was a different environment, but wrestling, like, live shows were very strong. When I first started running AWF shows, we would have, like, if we had 300 people at a show, it was a disaster. We would get, 400 and 500 people at all shows. It was just, and that was when WWE just started coming around 99, or just a little bit before. But again, sure, they've been here in the late 80s, and I'm not saying that the WWE's the only reason. There's many other reasons why it kind of, not dropped down, but just kind of, it had its, a little bit down. It dropped off a little bit. But, for example, I put a video online with myself versus Slex. It was from one of, the shows out at Penrith, sort of would have been in the mid 2000s. And there was like 400 or 500 people at this show, you know what I mean? So wrestling, like locally, it's doing great now. And I'm stoked to see it. Like wrestling's, doing well everywhere. I'm running shows almost every weekend again. And it's going to be a busy time this year, for wrestling, not just here, but around the world. I think the independent boom is a big part of that. But, in that period that you're referring to, in the, I guess it's like the mid 90s to 2000, would that be kind of the period you're looking at, or the early 90s? The club scene was quite strong.
I do remember that, because I remember being a kid, I would have been like 10 years old, so I'm talking like 97,
right,
and going to shows at Rudy Hill RSL.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it might have been IWA or something, but I remember as a 10-year-old thinking that like this was the biggest.
It was
thing.
awesome,
it was huge.
Yeah,
there were heaps of people there.
Yep.
More people than I'd seen in one place, because I never
You're a kid,
or cricket or anything. Yeah, so I was like, this is insane.
Yeah.
And we were always right at the back because my dad was always like, no, we'll get there as soon as it starts.
Damn, come on, Dad, we're ringside.
Yeah, but I was a kid. Like, no one says anything if you stand on a table.
Sure. Yeah, different times now. Different times now, but yeah.
But no, so like I understand that the attendance and everything was there, and there was actually some really good stuff happening. But I just mean in terms of the recording methods. Like, there's not a lot recorded about that time. It's like a big blank spot in history and not just that period, like the late 90s, like early 2000s is when stuff starts to become clearer again in terms of the history. But like that whole period from like when everything went off TV to the late 90s, early 2000s. There's like very little.
There's a couple of good like Facebook pages. Martin Heppel runs one, which is pretty good. It's got like some history of Australian wrestling for a certain period. There's one or two others. I think Dave Reck runs one as well. There's little glimpses. I know Martin he used to come and tape a lot of the shows for Worldwide Wrestling out at Ingleburn, and a couple of the other ones, ACW, which was run by Animal Harpus. So he uploads like clips. He a while ago even uploaded one of my first matches, which was as Tommy the Cat, as a bit of a sort of fun little WWE inspired gimmick. So I noted the other day there was like one or two with like some old school wrestling, like I think Pickford and Dunlop were on there, and maybe like the great George Barnes. And it's some interesting matchups. So that might be a good place to check out. But those days were instrumental in my upbringing. Like it was a different time. There was some like it wasn't it was still, you were able to get in, but it was just kind of a bit more rough and tumble. And it was very well received through the club circuit. Shows were at Ingleburn RSL, the following there was good. It was an interesting crowd, but it was a constant good draw down there for many, many years. There wasn't as many promotions. Maybe in Sydney there might have only been like sort of 3 or 4, promoters. So now it's just like cluttered this weekend. that just went by. There were like 6 other shows in Sydney region. Like I ran a show on the Saturday night on the 9th of February out at Penrith PCYC. And you know, some of the same fans go to the same shows. And, you know, like if there is a promotion that's probably a bit closer to home or they've been getting into a bit more lately or whatever, they'll probably go to that show. And that makes perfect sense, you know, but it kind of waters down the product a lot. You know, nobody plans, or I certainly don't plan for that to happen. You know, I book all my shows 3 months in advance, so I've got dates, you know, coming up or out there, you know, constantly. But sometimes clashes happen. But it's just it's very, very cluttered for such a niche fan base at the moment. You know, in a perfect world, there wouldn't be so many promotions, you know, running around together. But it's the way it is. So it's competitive and it's tough. Sometimes that competition, you know, leads to better things and better shows and whatnot. Other times it can just be so watered down that nobody can really make a good living out of it, or you know, by attrition, the ones that aren't either performing or performing to where the people that run them need them to will go away. So it's an interesting landscape now, as it was back then. But I think there is a big fallacy out there that like this is the biggest Australian wrestling, you know, boom or something like that, which is, you know, it's so awesome that it's doing well. Like I'm seeing shows that are drawing those 400 people and whatnot, but you know, don't forget that you know, through that I guess that black space or whatever that maybe is not so recorded, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The wrestling did do pretty good. Obviously, the World Championship Wrestling Days was really well received as well. Sydney Stadium and you know, in Melbourne at Festival Hall and other places like that, you know, thousands of people would come, you know, virtually every week to shows. You know what I mean? So wrestling, you know, has a place in a lot of people's hearts. You know, there's I can almost see it if there's a breakthrough before WWE expansion reaches out here, Australian wrestling will do well. Like if there can be that, just that real breakthrough where something gets, you know, big money behind it, or not even big money, just some money, you know, like real money behind it, and some real, promotional push. By that I kind of mean either a major station or a major company behind it fully that has the distribution and access to get things into certain places. You know, there is still a chance for a local product that isn't WWE weaned, which, and I'm not saying that that's the death of wrestling in Australia by any means. If they do that, God no. You know, it's good for some of the wrestlers. It's good for them. But you know, to me personally, my goal in wrestling was always to see Australian wrestling do well and to do better than it was, and to play my part to improve that. And in many ways, I think I've done that. You know, I've helped out so many guys starting up in wrestling, living their dreams. And you know, just being able to wrestle either one match or be at hundreds, you know. So, you know, I'm like we were just talking earlier, you know, like I'm all for people that want to, you know, help the wrestling scene. And I think we got, you know, so many good and talented wrestlers here. And I think in general, Australians are pretty good athletes. So once they kind of get the wrestling, but the actual wrestling part, a lot of them are quite good at. So yeah. Australia's, you know, and that's why it's getting noticed these days a little bit more online, because we just got so many guys that have got a lot of potential and they're passionate, and you know, we're English speaking, so a lot of places will understand us, and it's a, you know, it's a great country. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're producing world-class talent and everything here, and we'll get back to that in a second. But you did touch on something I want to go back to quickly. Mm-hmm. Tommy the Cat. Mm-hmm. You've had a lot of characters over here. You've got Tommy the Cat. You got Ozzy Osbourne.
Hell yeah, right? Love Ozzy Osbourne.
Alistair Rothschild. That's my personal favorite.
Well, he hasn't done much, but who knows when he's going to show up? I actually hear it a super. Well, that was actually taped for. I was asked by one of the major companies to to do that, and that was kind of a little bit of a pitch. That's why I kind of did that, even though like I think I only wrestled one match in it so far, so it was just a little gig. So, but it never fear it probably could return. I actually just received a parcel with some interesting things inside it. So who knows when that shtick could show up? It's it's a New World Order gimmick before New World Order. And it's like I see Aleister Black on NXT. It was 10 years before Aleister Black. The name he's adopted has parts of his personality in it. It was quite ahead of its time. But
you were thrown back to like Aleister Crowley and of course
absolutely.
the Rothschild family, the Illuminati
Yes.
stuff. Like, so people who listen to the show know this. Conspiracy Greg, get the conspiracy hat on. I'm a conspiracy nut, right?
Fantastic.
All that
we should
stuff
get
in
Brian
there.
Kendrick on here too. It'll be an amazing chat.
I love it. I feel like there's a lot of crossover with conspiracy in wrestling because I feel like people in wrestling know that everything's a work, right?
Well,
So-
eyes wide shut or open or whatever they say, So yeah, if you're if the blinkers are off, I guess the whole world can be perceived a little bit different, And a lot of the stuff with the Aleister Rothschild sort of personality and character was based on those things you touched on, like the Illuminati and just some of the secrets and Australia's role in it, like with a little bit of sort of research and sort of knowledge. You can see that Australia is a bit player in the whole sort of world conspiracy theory. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. And I even had like I've got like a couple of great reveals with that character that'll just be like really, really cool for wrestling fans. I'm not going to go into them until who knows, I might still do some kind of a shoot off of this at some stage. And don't be surprised if it's Supernova one weekend when it's one of these 3-day weekends. There's an appearance by TNT, Ozzy Osbourne and Aleister Rothschild. That'll be quite something for anybody.
Three Faces of Foley.
Yeah, a little bit like that, or like the Great Muta or something like that. So yeah, it's
Well, see now I want you to now I want to see you do this in a Rumble and do.
I've done Ozzy Osbourne and TNT in the Great Aussie Rumble. That was last year in January. I kind of being Australia Day, Ozzy Osbourne likes to rear his head and put a few smiles on kids' faces and have a good time. So last year at the Great Aussie Rumble at PCYC, he made himself sort of an entrant in that, and kind of flew in with a cape on his back, which is a lot of fun. So Australian flag, of course. And once again on the 26th, we did the Australia Day Wrestling out at our sort of newer venue out at Marrickville, the Mothership Studios. Which was a great show. We wrestled Keegan Brettle, who's now kind of an American sympathizer after a successful USA tour. And that was a hell fun match, and people dug it. It's not something that I would do all the time. It's very tongue in cheek. It's a lot of fun. When I was in Japan, it was a serious thing. They wanted me to kind of, like, I wrestled for 0-1 a couple of tours. They wanted me to kind of be more like a Stan Hansen or Bruce Brody style, not so much in style, but more in that crazy, like I've got a cowboy style hat, which is the
crazy guy,
a Cobra, and just running through crowds with the boomerang, and me and a tag team partner once even got this guy Billy Monero, who's a California-based wrestler. He was on one of the tours, and he had bananas, and we got to smear bananas all in commentators' faces, and I got to terrorize Japanese people on the streets with boomerangs. It was a hoot, they're the fun things that that make wrestling so cool, that you can kind of do a few things that you just can't get away with in normal life, but wrestling just takes you to those fun places where you go, man, this is the best,
Yeah, when you get to really turn it up and just be the character, right? But TNT, how did you land on TNT? Because you were TNT Kid first.
Yes, I was
right?
TNT Kid, like when I first started, like I did Tommy the Cat once or twice. I think I only wrestled 2 matches as Tommy the Cat, and I immediately knew the promoter didn't get it. He thought it was like Casper the Ghost, and I think one of the promoters was semi like gay, so he couldn't like dissociate that it was like Cat being a bit soft or a bit gay. So I just went, ooh, okay, I need to get out of this pretty quick. So, I was wrestling on some other, going to be wrestling on some other shows, and I thought now's the time to change it. I pretty much did a brainstorm, and I thought, TNT Kid, it sounds good. A couple of people had likened me to the 1-2-3 Kid or Lightning Kid, who was kind of coming up around the time. I didn't want to be the same as him, but the promoter Andy Harpus, but I threw a couple of sort of variations around, and he said, "Yeah, you kind of remind us of the Dynamite Kid, or just like a small wrestler, or the Lightning Kid." So we want to put the TNT Kid together, and I said, "Yep, sounds good." And I remember faxing, like in the era of faxes, faxing off my name and my bio to Animal Harvest. God bless that fantastic man. What a character! What a icon of Australian wrestling. If you're looking at that period that was seemingly missing in Australian wrestling from the end of World Championship Wrestling, probably to the start of sort of, I guess, 1990 or whatever. Animal Harpus, he was the promoter for Australian Championship Wrestling, ran many shows, Mounties at Mount Pritchard Community Club. He would have packed out shows every school holidays. We'd wrestle in front of 500, 600 people. The shows were based at kids on school holidays, and they were a lot of fun. Shopping center shows all around. He became a member. He was in the some kind of workers union or the like. Unfortunately, Andy had a stroke many years and is confined to a wheelchair these days. But a major giver in the pro wrestling, always so supportive of me. Like I remember being probably a 20 or 21-year-old young TNT kid and main eventing tag team matches with him against the likes of Mark Mercedes and Billy Condolian, Greg Smith, and these kind of guys down at these Mountie shows. And I'm thinking, Jesus, I'm having the time of my life. I'm 20 years old and I'm in the main event, and I'm mind you, taking most of the bumps and doing most of the work while he comes in and throws a few Dusty Rhodes elbows and headbutts, but all good experience, And then, like, he had a promotion called Australian Championship Wrestling. I was his champion for a while, like at the age of 21. Defeated Mark Mercedes, who runs IWA to this day. It's great memories, great days. A lot of people had their, I guess, complaints about Andy or had their issues with some of his style or tactics, but as far as I'm concerned, he was nothing but a guy that gave a lot of young people the opportunities of their life to wrestle. He used to go down to his little sweatbox at Liverpool at the back of the Whitlam Centre and put in the time. He got his son involved in the wrestling for a little while as well. Daniel, who was a really nice dude. And Animal Harpus was I hope I see him again somewhere down the line, because that man, very, very grateful for his contributions to the wrestling, not just on a personal level, but just overall.
Yeah. I mean, that Australian Championship Wrestling, was that the one that sort of became Melbourne City Wrestling?
No, it was the Sydney incarnation. That ACW kind of got taken over by Tommy Hellfire, the one in Melbourne you're talking about. And that was kind of run by a couple of Melbourne guys, I believe, like Dom and just different people. So yeah.
Right, because that's the thing.
Although just to confuse matters, sometimes those people did confer with each other. Like I know Dominic Bianco, who is a Sydney-based promoter and wrestler from that period as well, would sometimes have some of those guys from ACW in Melbourne come and wrestle on his show, Real Australian Pro Wrestling or something like that. So he would have some of those guys, and he was old friends from the World Championship Wrestling dying days with some of those promoters and guys that he wrestled with. So
yeah. That's amazing. Just hearing about this.
You're making me feel old, Greg, by the way.
No,
I'm a League fan. Me and Mark Mercedes in New South Wales Wrestling, we're kind of like the link. There's not many. There's probably a couple like sort of industry people like the great Ed Locke. Maybe one or two commentator kind of people or just behind the scenes people. But as far as that, hands on at the wrestling virtually every week, kind of people, myself, Mark Mercedes, Maybe one or two others are that kind of link from that period, I guess, from, sort of the early to mid 90s through to 2000 that you probably mentioned that was a little bit, under reported online and whatnot. So it's I guess it's a badge of honor, but it's a period that it does need some respect because, like I said earlier, the shows did draw. There was a lot of good work going on. Some excellent matches. Some for the time. Everything changes. Like a crossbody off the top was a big thing back then. But that's not to say if those wrestlers wrestled now that they couldn't do a moonsault off the top or whatever the equivalent was. Come to like that being a thing. Like in sort of 94 when I started, I was the first person to do a moonsault in Australia, I believe, to the floor, you know what I mean? So,
right.
Into the ring, like other people have done it like as a cross-body style, like a moonsault body block. But, I remember a couple of people saying, I think that's the first time it's ever been done in Australia. So I made that a thing for a while when I first started. And yeah, it's so that's how far the wrestling has obviously come style-wise and athleticism-wise, but the actual wrestlers back then were some of them were great characters. I remember a guy called Blade Runner, Gary Scott. What a character! There's some great performers like there are now. There's some great athletes or some good athletes, and just a lot more kind of older tough guys too that could really like really stood out to a crowd. Like, you wouldn't mess with them, if they're down at the, if they're wrestling in Sydney somewhere, if they're at the King's Cross or something like that, you wouldn't. They're the wrestlers. They're tough dudes. don't mess with them,
Yeah. So things have changed a lot, and now we are recording things, thankfully, which is great. But it's got to be like, is there people out there that own the video footage? We've got to track down some more.
Like I said, Martin Heppel has. Look, I've got all my stuff. I do, but a lot of it is on video, and it's just a matter of time. You know what I mean? Like it's either getting someone to do it, and people, are people, and they say they'll do it and they don't do it, or I've tried once or twice to get some stuff done. I'm becoming like a video guy at the moment, so. Like pretty much the last week, every day I've put out a piece of video footage. So some old stuff I might put out.
Like self-taught stuff you're learning.
I did a course last year, but I just have been so bogged down with life and wrestling. It's just hard for me to find the extra time. But now I've eliminated one or two of the things that by delegation of tasks that were taking up a little bit of time that were kind of tasks that were just how would you say, things that other people could do. So I pay a couple of people to do one or two things. I have some volunteers that are helping as well. So I'm just getting a little bit more time, and I'm very hands-on. Like I knew how to edit the basic edits before, and still my stuff is not perfect, but I'm going to, spend a little bit of time on just learning the craft a little bit more, so that I might not always be the edit guy, but I want to know like some technical things that make things fancy, so that I can implement them if somebody else is doing them a bit easier, or just know if something needs to get done quick, and this is the main reason for it. I think like if I'd rather have someone that's really pro doing my stuff in the long run, especially with some things that are coming up. But when something needs to be done on the day and it needs to be done, I need to be able to go in and just patch it up and go, okay, it's going to be okay, or it's just going to be basic, quick match edits. Like, so for example, this, for the last 3 or 4 months, sorry about that, we're just getting another email, but, for the last sort of 3 or 4 months, I've been doing, AWF top 5. So, I'll just as a bit of practice. So I'll put together that whole thing. Like I'll get some footage from a show, cut up a couple of clips, put in, do a voiceover, a bit of music in the background. The whole thing will go for about 2 or 3 minutes, and it'll basically give a bit of a summary for that month. What are the key things that happen and the key angles, and maybe at the end, like a couple of video screens that'll say, hey, this is our next show. This is what dates are coming up. Here's what's going to be the main points, and here's where you get tickets. You know what I mean? So it's just basically an informative thing. If nobody's seen that, go on our YouTube, and you can check it out. Or if you just go to our website, it'll be on the main page. Currently, it's got the last 2 up there. So it's got December and January, but you get an idea, and it'll pretty much set the scene for somebody that hasn't been to an event before or is coming back, or just gives a bit of an update to people that are just wanting to come and have a look. So anyone that wants,
I've seen those in the Australian Wrestling community group. That
great, Well, I'm doing my best
yeah.
to share it around to as many places that I can. Your group's one of the ones on the list, and it's at the top of the list a lot of times, which is good. So yeah.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Sorry to interrupt, guys. We're going to get back to the interview in just a second, but first, just want to talk to the blokes in the audience. Let's be honest. We all want to look good. Whether we're going out to the local Grapps show, whether we're going out with friends, whatever we're doing, we want to look good. But we don't necessarily... we're not all Nikki Van Blair with daddy's credit card spending up a spree. We don't all necessarily like the shopping aspect that it takes to look good. And that's where Threadbox comes in. Threadbox is a monthly subscription box that sends personalized clothing to your door. When I say personalized clothing, I'm not talking about the weird stuff that has your name on it and says it's a family thing or whatever. I'm not talking about those things that you get on the Facebook ads. I'm talking about real personalized personal shopping experience. If you need shirts, they're going to look at shirts. If you need singlets, they're going to look at singlets. If you need shoes, they're going to look at shoes. You're in email contact with a stylist who will build a style profile based on how you like to look. I've got the fresh duds. CJ gets the classic box where, a little bit plainer in his outlook, whereas I like to have funky patterns. And they're going to personalize that and tailor it to you and to your needs. And what's more is it's available on every budget with boxes starting from just $40. So if you want to look good with less effort and without all the pesky shopping stuff, if you want someone else to handle that for you, head over to threadbox.com.au, and because you are a B Plus player, they're going to give you 15% off your first box when you use the code the B Plus 15. That's threadbox.com.au. Use the code the B Plus 15 and get your first box today. We are all WWE fans here. It's why we're here, listening to this show and spending inordinate amounts of hours consuming, complaining, and just generally eating, sleeping, and breathing professional wrestling. But if you want to take that to the next level, the only place to do it is WrestleMania 35 in the city so nice that they named it twice, New York. And our new friends at All Aussie Travelers are going to help you make that happen in the best way possible. They are new to the wrestling travel game, granted, but they have over 15 years experience in sports and event tours between the US and Australia, so you know you're in good hands. They want to offer you an exclusive WrestleMania package, including return flights to the USA, 6 nights at the New Yorker Hotel right next to Times Square. And the thing that sets these packages apart are the VIP suites that AAT have secured for WrestleMania. So that's, of course, the Raw after WrestleMania. So not only are you going to go to the Hall of Fame, not only are you going to go to WrestleMania 35, but for NXT TakeOver, SmackDown Live, and the Raw immediately after WrestleMania that next night, you are going to be in an exclusive VIP suite that is not normally available to the public. But AAT, they got it locked down. They got it waiting for you with your name on it, your own private entrance, your own private toilets and bar, as well as an unparalleled view in the most comfortable seats in the house. You can experience WrestleMania weekend like never before, all at really competitive prices. So head over to All Aussie Travelers on Facebook, hit that like button, send him a message, send an email to Jack, that's JAAK, at allaussie.com.au, and let them know the B Plus sent you. Yeah, so we started that because we want people to come in and share. So if you have anything to share, people, come into the Australian wrestling community. Cheap plug. But yes, it's all about accessibility. Like, I love that you're doing that because it makes it more accessible, right? And I go on about this on the show all the time. Accessibility. If we can't see you, we can't talk about you. If we can't talk about you, people can't become fans, et cetera, right? So, I feel like accessibility is huge. So to that token, can we expect, streaming services are all the rage. AWF have quite a library, I'm sure.
Yeah, look, I had a streaming service about 2 years ago. AWF On Demand. It was run through the Vimeo platform. Bit of work went into it. Lukewarm interest. So
right.
It was at the time, to be honest with you, was putting more energy into that than it was generating back. So I put a pause on the program. I just said, look, I want to concentrate on some other things. I was doing quite a bit of traveling at the time. I wanted to just to slow down like some of my stuff in Australia and do things. I'm quite an international person. I've got a family in another country now. I've got like friends that I like to visit in other places as well. Sometimes I'll tack on a bit of wrestling, which is good. I'm actually going to the Philippines again soon, which will be at the start of March. So I'm going to be, and I actually in a couple of places have like a few sort of people that I'll do seminars with and sort of give some advice on the wrestling. So in past years, I've done things in Thailand. I've run the Thailand Wrestling Federation, run a few shows there. After that, I've made one or two seminars around Singapore and different places like that. Currently, a bit of time each year is being spent in the Philippines. So I believe on the 8th of March, I'm going to be doing a seminar with the Art of War Wrestling, who are a group that's got a lot of students. They've got about maybe 20 to 40 students. I know that's a loose number, but some stay, some leave and whatnot. But I did a seminar for them last year, and there would have been at least, over 20 at least. And apparently they've got a few more new ones there since, and a new training center. So, I'm going to be returning for them. I believe it's going to be on the 8th of March off the top of my head, because it's all just coming to hand now. Cause I'll just arrive around that time. So it'll be a full day seminar. Some information will come to hand, but just to the point, I'm pretty international and wrestling's keeping me really busy at the moment.
Yeah, so, of course, I can understand, like, putting your energy where it's getting the most sort of comeback, that makes sense.
Yeah, and with the video stuff, you know what I mean? Like, we are currently, I can't make an announcement yet, but I'm quite sure that we're going to be having something coming out pretty soon, maybe tied in with the upcoming Supernovas in April, some announcements there, but it will likely be to do with our streaming services and some things that are hopefully going to impact Australian wrestling quite well. So
right. We'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, definitely. There'll be announcements. We're just kind of working out some terms right now. They actually attended our show recently at Penrith. We're very happy with myself and the product. They seem like a very forward-thinking company, and we're currently just ironing out a couple of things. And it may even be at the end of this week that everything's ironed out and we're ready to announce some things. But we want to do a proper launch again. Like I said, we had the AWF On Demand before. It was okay. We want our platform because we've got a lot of contacts around the world. We've got a lot of footage of matches that have never, really seen much of the light of day. That I think some people internationally, especially now with the indie buzz, would love to see. I've got a lot of Super Dragon matches. I've got a lot of Daniel Bryan matches. I've got a few. I've got a few. Just current WWE wrestlers, Impact wrestlers, different ones from different time periods. Some flashbacks. Some really good. Australian wrestlings that a lot of people have never seen. Like in the even in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, AWF had some fantastic wrestlers, guys like Mark Hilton, El Cognito when he was at his peak as a heel. Couple of powerhouse Theo, he was a beast. We've got some guys, and they're wrestling. From time to time, international names that people today would know. So it'd be a good little throwback, especially with the AWF 20 year anniversaries coming up. Which are looking likely to be like 12 and 13 of July. We really want to, play on a lot of our history, and showcase some of these great Australian talents or Australasian talents. We ran shows in New Zealand. I wrestled like guys from Dragon Gate many times. Many of the Dragon Gate guys came out here and wrestled some of those guys that we mentioned before. People like that are still wrestling and coming out to Australia to this day. Like Austin Aries came out and did shows for AWF. Great talents that are, real hardcore wrestling fans, still watch and enjoy. So we got some good footage in the can. Some of it's seen the light of day to a limited audience on DVD, a little bit online, but a lot of the stuff, some of it's not edited, some of it is going to be edited. Currently, I've got like 2 or 3 new editors that are about to start. Basically doing one or two matches a day. So this is a thing. It'll be announced soon. we may it may turn into a really really good platform. It may be another thing that's just like every other platform in Australian wrestling currently. But we're gonna get a lot more people, at least aware of it, and we'll see whether it's worth the time this time again.
Well, there's like you touched on something there as well. I feel like there's two kinds of wrestling fans. There's a lot of wrestling fans that are very big on nostalgia, right? For me, I'm more interested in what's next.
Yeah, many people are.
Which can it can be good, can be bad, but I'm very interested in what's next, and I have my eye on a lot of the Southeast Asian wrestling, right? And you guys have partnered with OWE. You touched on it there. You've wrestled over. You said with the Art of War, Manila Wrestling Federation. Yep. There's stuff going on in Thailand, Taiwan, Malaysia. It's all over the place now, and it's really popping off and getting hot over there. Do you see much opportunity over there for Australian wrestlers, Australian companies?
Yes.
Do you think
I've been in the forefront of this for like 5 years ago. They're all just starting to, like I said, I'm kind of been traveling around to these places, like all those places you've mentioned. I've sent Australian wrestlers to places like Malaysia, Shaz McKenzie, and some of these other people that got an opportunity there. Through those promotions, even though I couldn't line up to go myself. Like a lot of people don't understand. Like behind the scenes, I get offered a lot of stuff, but I have to turn it all down, or I turn it down by choice because I choose to do my AWF stuff. I don't have to wrestle anywhere else if I don't want to. I get asked a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes if it works out good for me, I do it. If it doesn't, I quite often send somebody else or recommend other people, not just Australians, but other people that are good for the job, and people would not believe the amount of times that I've passed up, opportunities, just for the betterment of what's best for the wrestling, not what's best for TNT or sometimes sure it's things that, look, it's just not going to be, I'm not able to get away. I've got, my AWF show this weekend, or I've got an engagement with my son that I cannot miss, which is very important to me. Not missing on the big days with my family sort of commitments. So yeah, I found through time, balance in your life is so important to staying in the wrestling. Like a lot of people have just been kind of like, they're in the wrestling for 5 minutes, or they're really passionate for a while and they drop off, and I totally get it, and I understand it. People have burnout or whatever, but this is my job. This is my occupation. Many opportunities come up, like you mentioned OWE. There was opportunities for me to go and they want me to spend a month there, but just me finding the time to be able to do that is really hard. They want me to help with some things over there. It'll probably happen at some stage this year, but like I was supposed to go, earlier this year, but I just said, look, it's too crazy and busy for me at the moment. I can't do it, and they're totally cool. And we will be sorting some things for not just myself, but other wrestlers, in the not too distant future. I believe, things are pretty much on the way to be set up for them to be making appearances at the 20 years show. I'll see a lot of those guys in the States, I believe, early April, for some things, and then maybe even on the way back, we may be doing a stop in at China. So yeah, I think things are worldwide, just opening up wrestling in the internet and just the availability for people to be able to connect is it's an amazing thing. It's helped wrestling immensely, the world's a very open and a place for communication now. So especially these places that aren't experienced in the wrestling so much, and they need the help with someone with experience, especially like, not to tip my own, someone with 20 years promoting wrestling events experience, plus another 4 or 5 years just wrestling as a wrestler beforehand, learning the ropes, traveled around the world. I've wrestled in, many great places against many great wrestlers. That they're so welcoming to that kind of experience and just open to learning. It's an amazing time for wrestling, as many people know. And these new places, it's one of my passions to teach the art of wrestling in a way that benefits everybody, and especially when it's a new place that doesn't really know what it's really about. They've got their ideas or haven't really had somebody that's got a really good fundamental trainings that's been running things. I think it can it can cut out a lot of the stuff that they don't need to go through, and not to rush them, but to get them to this is the real wrestling. If we're going to do this, let's get serious and let's not learn bad habits to begin with and have to take a step back and get to the vibe. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so you talked about the internet there and the good side of the internet and how it does help the wrestling grow, which I'm a firm believer in. I mean, I'm here on the internet, a mark with a mic talking to you, so to try to do the same thing.
It's a passionate mark versus a non-constructive mark, So there's a difference. And Mark, what's a mark? Mark's an unintelligible fan, I mean, someone that's a believer in wrestling, that believes that the wrestling is real and whatnot. So, yeah, it's a different age.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you may have a sense of where I'm going here. That there is another side to the internet, though. There's a lot of and you I don't know if you know just how much. I mean, sometimes you can get turned into a meme, right?
That's hilarious. I feel like Billy Corgan.
There's trolls out there that do sort of, I feel like
something
there's
like a lot of spare time, brother. or personal agendas, I'm sure a lot of those people are disgruntled wrestlers that couldn't get on, or people that are trying to suck up to other people and get a lot of spare time. That's all a lot of it is, it's really petty, and it's to me, it's like, probably it's a feather in my cap, but it's also like, if it's something that's going to defame me where it may cost me money, this is my job, this is my income, I feed my son this way, I take it very personally. People that want to, like, we're such a niche thing here, and like, these people just don't know how much I try for the wrestling and how many, like, just fucking hits I've taken for other people just to keep the wrestling going in a good way, or even a lot of the time, even some of my wrestlers and stuff like that, I'll do stuff for them out of the way that they never even notice, but is really to help me. I get no benefit from it whatsoever, and actually sometimes it sets me back a little bit, and I kind of like, and these same people, sometimes, I'm not just saying the wrestlers, but just wrestling fans too, the ones that you've put your butt on the line, you've went out and done a lot of good stuff, to try and give them something, and they find nothing better than to, I don't know, just to try and put it down just for their own, like, self-gratification, or just to get a little bit of notoriety off someone else's back. It is what it is. But, wrestling fans are very boisterous. They always have been. They're entitled to their opinion. And if they want to grandstand and try to get themselves over, so to speak, well, whatever.
Yeah, I feel like the worst part is sometimes you can have a valid criticism of someone, but then if you're an asshole, no one's going to listen, sure. Right? And so there's a lot of people just being complete jerks online and aiming to bring people down. And it's not just yourself. Like, there's a lot of wrestlers who cop it. I know that Shazza McKenzie herself was dealing with some recently, and then the guy lost a bet and had to take a photo with her at one of the shows, which was hilarious.
Don't be a dick or don't be a pussy, man. You know what I mean? Like, if you're being stupid and being rude, it comes back to get you. But at the same time, if you got beliefs and you have an opinion, yeah, you can stand up to it. But it's not necessarily right. Or it's just your opinion. So, everybody, especially it seems like in like modern wrestling fandom, like a lot, not everybody, but a lot of people want to, be heard and like this revolution where the fans want to get a lot of attention and stuff like that. I think it's fun in a lot of cases, but other times it's very counterproductive for the wrestling scene as a whole. So I think, if wrestling fans, come and love wrestling, they'll support the shows, they'll support the wrestlers, but also at the same time, yeah, they can have their opinion, because their opinion and feedback is very important to the promotions. It's important to the people that are up the top, paying the bills and running the shows. It should be listened to, but at the same time, they don't always get to run the show. You know what I mean? Like say for example, like an artist, wrestling is an art, and like if say Picasso painted a picture, you know what I mean? Does what a fan says, or somebody, a critic or an art, sort of critic, what their interpretation of it is, if they don't like it, does that mean he needs to change it? No, it stands on its own. If enough people don't like it for long enough, it'll either change by natural attrition or it will go away. So, or it will continue to exist, but no one will pay attention to it. So it's like a tree falling in a forest. Did it really happen? So, yeah.
Yeah. I see people also knock like different promotions that will, bring people out bring internationals out and stuff, even if it doesn't pop a house, right? Even if they end up losing money, and they I've spoken to promoters that are like that. We brought them out so that guys can get more experience, so that guys can get more exposure and stuff like that. And I feel like that's a good thing if someone's willing to lose money. Like,
it's like I think like a thing for like some wrestling fans to prove their smartness. And this is, I love wrestling, and I love most wrestling fans. The people that come to my shows are amazing. They're so, like, 99% of the time are so, like, friendly and happy to be there and generous. So I love the vibe at AWF shows, because it's all good spirited people, like not just the staff, but the actual fans. Like we had a show on Saturday, and these same people, the kind of people that came to the shows, like a couple of them the first time, I said, this was the best night our family's ever had. I was like, wow, just a small show at Penrith, but I tell you what, we made a really good impression. And they messaged me 2 days later and said, wow, we can't wait for Blackdown, and they purchased tickets, which is our next event, in 3 weeks' time. So it's just, the good spirit of the wrestling. It's gotta win, So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love that, because that's the thing is, I'm a wrestling fan, right? That's why I do this. And so I feel like anyone who wants good things for wrestling, like I want to pump them up. So we haven't gotten to even half the things that I have written.
I got a lot of wrestling stories and a lot of in-depth descriptions, I guess. Wrestling is, like I said, it's my job, it's my passion. Like a lot of people, like you talk about people making memes and having a lot of spare time for TNT. Like, I don't have hardly any spare time. For even me to do this, to take an hour out of my day was like, shit, I gotta, you knew on the way here, I'm at the gym, I'm sorting emails as we've been speaking. There's been about four messages come in. I've got things to pick up. I got deliveries. It's like I'm a full on dude, but I love wrestling. I always got energy for the wrestling, and after this, I got to sift through some video stuff to send off, and next show stuff. Like, if you look at our social media, like people, just as a heads up, like wrestling is very niche. Like, to run a promotion, I'm not just sitting there and picking matches to choose, who's going to go over and all this kind of. That is just like the smallest bit of it. Like, every day now, like we've spoken about the internet, whatever. I got to do all the social media stuff. And sure, I can delegate some of it, and I have in the past, but sometimes it just doesn't get done the way that it needs to be done. So you gotta be hands on. I'm very hands on with this stuff. At the same time, I'm organizing, like, street advertising as well, like posters and flyers. I'm organizing, potential couple of meetings every now and again, some things with venues, some things that are just, outside things like merchandise and overseas, consultation, like these seminars, and also just future business development. Like, a lot of my stuff, like, even it doesn't happen for a year, but it starts with some talks. It starts with some things, like, and me, like, I'll dare say I'll be, in the USA at the start of March for a couple of meetings as well. I was there last year for meetings, for future tours and future shows. I've got, like, my hand is in a lot of places. Some of the things I will do, some of them I won't do. Some of them are for future when the time comes about, so it's done correctly. Wrestling is my business, and I have to, have, to last 20 years, you have to have a lot of things that fire correctly to continue to do it. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think, yeah, we're getting close to time here. So I think we should start to wrap up, but I'm going to have to get you back on maybe around Supernova time or something, because I've got a whole bunch of other questions that I haven't gotten to, a whole bunch of other talking points. But before I let you go, I want to circle back to the character, to TNT. Yes. I want to circle back to some of I feel like it would be a miss if this interview didn't cover some of the idiosyncrasies of the TNT character. Where does SAAAAAAA
came from being in the ring and feeling it. It's the energy to just keep you going when you got nothing left. It's the push of the universe. It's the driving force. What keeps me interested in wrestling and keeps me passionate for the fans, passionate for my family, and just it's my life force. SAAAAAA is to me is just like, hey, we're going to do this no matter whatever it takes. Let's do good for the wrestling. Let's, have fun. Let's live our lives. Let's just enjoy wrestling. Respect the pro wrestling. That's one of my, AWF catchphrase. AWF respect pro wrestling. Proud to be pro wrestling. There's been a lot of people that do a lot of stupid things in the wrestling or embarrassing things for the wrestling. I don't want that on my shows. I don't want that with the people around me. I want to, project a real energetic, something that inspires young people or people of any age, to either enjoy the moment or enjoy a wrestling show and just give to the wrestling. SAAAAAAA is my contribution to a ridiculous word that actually is my own, that you can put a picture in the dictionary and write SAAAAAA next to it, and they'll go, that's that TNT guy. He's a wrestling guy. But he was passionate for the wrestling. He's an Australian wrestling pioneer, I guess. And he really, really loves the fans, and he loved pro wrestling. From the first day I saw pro wrestling as a little boy, like I mentioned, earlier, I was just like, what is this? I got to be able to do this. These guys are awesome. And since that day, I've never looked back. I'm living the dream. In some ways, a lot of people have been jealous of me over the years because I've got to do what I love in my life. You know what I mean? And it's not easy. They see sometimes the good times, but they don't see the hardships and just the struggles. But, overall, it's been quite a good ride for me. I'm very, very fortunate, very, very lucky. And part of that, Sarah, is just the appreciation and respect for professional wrestling. Who came before, paved the way, who's going to do great things, and continue the small legacy that I'm building locally and in little places, in these new developing, wrestling countries and territories, and just to, just enjoy wrestling, guys. It's half the time it's guys in tights, doing fake fights or women or whoever is involved. But it's an amazing art form. It's like got everything that you could ever, want in one place, in my opinion. It could even, in many ways, even you could break it down and make an Olympic sport if you compare it to some other Olympic sports like synchronized swimming and stuff like that. It has the same elements plus more, I'm not saying that it needs to be an Olympic sport, it should be, but there are elements.
Right, no, I can see the rationale there, like behind synchronized swimming,
and give it a point system. We can do it. No, I'm not saying that that's the direction wrestling should go in, but it is. That's how versatile and amazing it is. Any other sport that had been bagged so much, it would be dead. It wouldn't exist. But pro wrestling has, it's a rock and roll concert. It's a a theater show. It's comedy. It's physical. It's like the athletes at especially at the level now, Jesus, they're world class. They're getting Olympic athletes. They're getting people from all walks of life that are major sports crossovers or people interested in it. It's wrestling to me. It just ticks off all the boxes. It's so fun when done right. It can be awful as well. I've seen some wrestling and it almost like disappoints me. I'm like, oh man, stop or go and help make it better. But and it happens everywhere. But when it's done right and when those moments happen, it's amazing. For me as a wrestler, that moment when you do a match and a lot of things seem to go right or everything goes right, which happens very rarely for most, but you can get that natural sort of reaction and high and feeling that's like, man, this is the best. I could have done anything. I could be a doctor. I could have done anything. And for that moment, you're at the top of your emotion, top of your game, top of your feeling. And that, my friend, is what the SAAAAAA is all about. Being the best you can be, the desire, the determination, the dedication, and the detonation to pop yourself, pop the audience, pop everybody that loves wrestling and say, hey, wrestling is winning. We love wrestling. And, we want to regenerate that over and over.
That's amazing. So that's the SAAAAAA. And look, is the bounce when you cut a promo, you have this signature bounce. Is that like the physical manifestation?
It's like everything. The TNT thing resonates because it's all like a waiting to explode moment. It's the 3, 2, 1's the countdown to a bomb going off. It's the tick, tick, tick in the ring, which is it's about to start. It starts the bouncing in a promo. If it's a pre-match promo, it's like things are ready to blow. We're going to go out there and we're going to put on a hell of a show. We're going to give it our all. No matter what, even man, people don't understand when I wrestle on a show, like for mostly for the past 20 years, my day isn't just turn up and wrestling. My day, like the night before, it's usually like 5 hours sleep because I've got to get a whole bunch of shit that can only be done like a day or two before the show. done, like for the wrestling show, then most of the time I drive the truck. So I'm up early, like say the show at Penrith, I was up till probably 1 a.m. just finalizing a couple of things with cards. Some people, mixed messages, they're not showing up, other concerns, not showing up for ring duties. There's all the other bits of the show that I help organize then. Say, for example, that morning, so because it's very hot weather, I had to go and get drinks so that they're cold. I had to get, do some running around with some flyers because the next ones needed to be out for the show and there needed to be a change to one of the dates. So I had to go and get that stuff, sort of this real pressing stuff printed. So it's at the show. Chocolates and sort of confectionery because it's hot, it's melting. So all that in the morning, and then as soon like there's a couple of printing and shopping and whatever. Then pack, make sure I've got all my stuff for my own wrestling, cameras, all this kind of stuff. Make sure I've got all the gear lined up. Then have people come to my storage. Approximately 10, or so of the wrestlers and some students and whatnot arriving, unloading the stuff onto the truck that's been picked up, and then getting that all together, then heading out to the venue by 3 o'clock, setting making sure that everything gets set up from signage to ring to seating to everything, sound and whatnot, little technical hitches, like, one of our sound, situations came to a head where some equipment was faulty, so we had to quickly on the day go and get another microphone, and then all of a sudden the other stuff was working, like little things like that nobody sees before the curtain is raised, sort of thing. And then pretty much on you had a couple of new staff to induct, and then all of a sudden we did the it was coming to 6 o'clock with doors, get everybody in the dressing room, doors start, quickly go through a bit of a pre-match ritual and whatnot, and then by the time it was 7 o'clock, the bell's ringing, and then once that happens, pack it all away. It'll be 11 or 12 o'clock, and then drive the truck back, and then the next morning unload it all, and then run a training session. Then they're full on days,
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and it's the SAAAAAA that keeps you going. And hopefully, I mean, look, we're talking about 20 years of AWF already. Hopefully we're in store for another 20 more at least. Look, I'm going to have to get you back to go through all the rest of the stuff that we want to do.
I'm coming up to 42, brother. I don't think nobody wants to see me wrestle when I'm 62, but I'm sure I'll be involved somehow. I'm a lifer. Some people are just for a short time, like we mentioned, or just flash in the pans, or just do it so that they're popular with their friends, or everybody has their own reasons. But I love wrestling, and I'm a lifer as long as I can, as long as I've got good people around, and it's the good people around, the wrestling sometimes too that are the ones that keep it going, So yeah, I love wrestling, and yeah, I'm sure I'll be involved in some way as long as I can help people and I'm contributing in a positive way.
Awesome. Where can people find you out? So I'm going to put the social medias and everything in.
You can find me all over the place. If you want to directly email me for like wrestling things personally, like for TNT, contact TNT at hotmail.com is my public email. So you can, if it was a seminar or if it was like international. I don't do a lot of local stuff, but next year I'm going to run something, or this year rather, I'm going to run something in Queensland. I have my wrestling school, AWF School of Pro Wrestling. We're currently taking new students. We just debuted a couple of new students, Wesley Williams and Chris Rucker, and they've done really well in their first 2 matches. So hats off to those guys. Got a whole bunch of new guys interested that'll probably be starting. Our next intake looks like it'll be, I would say it's in sort of Marrickville at the end of April. So that's when we'll have our next intensive. We'll probably have a dream camp in June or thereabouts as well. So for people that just want to give wrestling a try, that's a good time. So yeah, the info at awfwrestling.com.au for the AWF school and anything AWF business related. That's a good email. Website for the AWF is awfwrestling.com.au. We got Facebook, which would be Australian Wrestling Federation. Our supporters group for New South Wales fans, that's becoming popular. So check that out. It's just AWF New South Wales supporters. There's a Twitter, which is AWF Wrestling, Instagram, AWF Wrestling _off. So for official. YouTube, which we're going to be content over the next couple of weeks and months, which is just AWF Wrestling. For myself, TNT, like I said, contact TNT at hotmail.com will be my personal one. I'm relaunching my website soon, just because there's been a lot of international interest from different promoters, and I probably will be doing a few excursions. Hopefully not just by myself, with one or two students and regular wrestlers. So that's tntwrestler.com. The new interface and videos are going to be going up very regularly in the next sort of fortnight, I believe. It should be ready. YouTube, AWF TNT is my handle there. A lot of video content going up. I just put one or two sort of like short move sets and stuff like that, and the ring entrance video up just the other day, so check them out. My probably the one that I use the most, Facebook, TNT Greg Bounds. So Greg Bounds is my real name. It's spelled GREG .BOWNDS. So TNT Greg Bounds. If you just write TNT Greg, you'll be able to find that quite easily. Twitter, same TNT Greg Bounds, and the Instagram will be the same TNT Greg Bounds. So a lot of information there, a lot of wrestling stuff. I've also got a few other sort of side pages for the AWF School of Pro Wrestling. That's on Facebook as well. On the website, there's a whole lot of merchandise and stuff like that. So if you go to the AWF store, they'll on the www.awfwrestling.com.au, you'll be able to get like some basic merchandise. A whole bunch of new merchandise should be here by our next event, which will be our return to Blacktown after many, many years. At the Blacktown, what used to be the Civic Centre, but it's now the Blacktown Beaumont Hall. It's going to be called Back in Blacktown. That'll be the 1st of March. Tickets are on sale now. Are
you getting some shirts that aren't
black?
black?
Blue and white. Yeah, I'm totally on that. We've got red and black ones currently. They seem to be the best sellers, so that's why we keep with them. But yeah, white and blue are in the next line. So.
I'm on a big kick at the moment. I'm like, I've got too many
black
wrestling
absolutely.
shirts.
Variety's the spice of life too. Have different colors. I used to be like a got any blacker kind of dude, but man, I'm a red and black guy through and through. But I love to. As you mature, and I think as you go older, you realize it's a big world out there. There's a lot of fun and colorful things out there. But some days aren't a black day. things are better than that.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming by, TNT. I really
appreciate the talk, and let's chat more, and I hope to see you at the show again soon, Greg.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, man.
Cheers. Appreciate the getting it out there, man. Keep up the good work. Okay, cheers.
So there you have it, TNT, the master of detonation, obviously the owner and promoter of AWF, Australian Pro Wrestling. He's been doing it for a very long time, a lot of stories to tell. When I said I didn't get to half my questions, I actually checked. I counted them through as I was editing, and I got to less than half of the things I wanted to talk about. So we're definitely going to have TNT back when he's available to sort of go through some other things, because I know there's a lot of things people want to know, and there's a lot of things that I want to know. There's a lot of stories he can tell. So we'll definitely have TNT back. If you like that interview and you want to hear other Aussie Grappler interviews this week, Fox... That is Funtime Phil. He popped up in 2 places. He was in On the Turnbuckle this week. He was also on Talk and Stick alongside Cousin Ali. So definitely worth checking those out, guys. I'm not sure who was on Wrestle Radio Australia this week. Again, I've been feeling under the weather. It hasn't released yet. I haven't been able to get around to it. So those are the interviews that I have to plug for you. As for shows and what's happening this weekend, just a quick rundown. All of these shows are happening on Saturday night. That's February 16. In New South Wales, Newcastle Pro Wrestling present the Invictus Tournament Finals at Charlestown Bowling Club. In Victoria on Saturday night, PCW Ignition at the Southeastern Entertainment Centre, and also across town, APW Hit the Lights. That takes place at Cranbourne Indoor Sports. In Queensland on Saturday night, UPW return to Gympie at the Gympie Residential Golf Club. In Western Australia, New Horizons Pro Wrestling present Battle of Honour. I'm fairly sure there are copyright issues there with Ring of Honour, guys. Just be careful, tread lightly. That's Saturday night at Cockburn Youth Centre over there. And in New Zealand, IPW New Zealand present Takedown at the Mount Eden War Memorial Hall in Auckland. And SPW host Fight for Gold at the Corinthian Centre in Invercargill. So that's all the stuff happening this weekend. Go to the Facebooks for those companies if you want more information, if you want to have a look at what's coming up on the card. You can find us at the B Plus Wrestle on Facebook, the B Plus Wrestle on Twitter, because wrestling wouldn't fit. The B Plus Wrestling everywhere else. I'm not going to do it. Like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much for listening.
Hold one. Arm drag.
You're not good at this. Get out. Let me tell you a personal story about Vince McMahon.
You just made the list. Oh my God.
speak English.
Goodbye and good night. Hold two. Arm bar.
This is the worst town I've ever been in.
It's still real to me, damn it!
Hold three. The moss covered.